All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning, this Monday morning. Today, we're going to be talking about healthier holiday cooking. My name is Brooke Goble. I am the Health and Human Sciences Educator in Pike County. And then we also have Meagan Brothers, who is the Health and Human Sciences Educator in Vanderburgh County. And both of us are presenting today.
Hey everybody, and Brooke, I just remembered why you asked me that. So yes, I will go ahead and do our intro slides if you want to go forward for us. So those of you who have joined us before, welcome back. For those of you who are brand new to our webinar series, welcome. And as you can see, I'm in my kitchen, and I'm in my kitchen for a reason. I am going to actually be doing some demoing. I have some food in the oven right now, and then after our presentation, I'm going to actually do a live demo with you guys. But if you're new to our webinar series, we want to give you guys a little background on extension, because what we find is that people don't really know what we do, or they might know a small snippet. So Cooperative Extension, which Purdue is part of this Cooperative Extension service, we are a nationwide network. Every state and territory has an extension, at least one land-grant university, which is where the Cooperative Extension Service comes from. So every state has one, at least one. Some states have more than one. So Purdue University is the land-grant university in Indiana. We focus on research, education, and community outreach. So the information that we get from the USDA, that we get from campus, that we get from our other national networks of extension, we are able to bring that to our individual counties. And Purdue is a very unique state with extension, because we have extension in every county in Indiana. And a little geography lesson for those of you, we have 92 counties in Indiana. So we have 92 extension offices in Indiana. And we focus on health and human sciences, but we also house and work with our agricultural natural resources. We have our community development. We also have our 4-H and youth development programs within that as well. So the big mission of Purdue is that we are going to deliver that practical research-based information to you. And it's quick delivery. And like I said, if you guys have been on our webinars, you've seen all the different variety of topics that we cover and that we talk about. So that's just a little background on Purdue Extension and extension in general.
Oh no, hold on. There we go.
Okay, so Brooke, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Oh, sorry. I skipped 1 to 2. Okay, so today's learning objectives are shown here. So we're going to understand the importance of making healthy eating choices. We're going to identify ways to make substitutions in recipes to make them healthier, discover new recipes for healthier alternatives to holiday recipes, and we're going to implement steps to take to keep food safe from foodborne illnesses. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to do a quick little breathing exercise just to kind of get started, kind of relax and get ourselves into today. So what I want you guys to do is to close your eyes if you want to. I want you to inhale for 3 seconds, 2, 3, and hold. And exhale. Do a nice long exhale. I want you to inhale again. Hold. And exhale. Nice slow breaths. Inhale. Hold. And exhale. Once you do that 2 more times by yourself, do your own little breathing pattern if you need to. Get yourself nice and relaxed and focused. Great job. All right, so quick little discussion as the start of this. Think about your holiday traditions and meals. What foods come to mind when you think about the holidays? You can go ahead and put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute, you can. So what foods come to mind when you think about the holidays? Turkey and dressing, good. Food, candy, yes. More turkey. Pumpkin pie, yes, that is my favorite. Got some desserts and treats. Green bean casserole, there's a pumpkin pie, all kinds of things. Oh, great job. Turkey and ham, yes. So when some of these, we kind of have some issues. They sometimes are unbalanced. We can have some unbalanced nutrition. So there's lower amounts of vegetables. We have higher fat or sugar. Fruits can sometimes have the added sugar and not hold, especially in some of those fruit pies. And then our portion sizes are sometimes off. We eat a lot larger portions because we're sitting there in one spot. You have, the appetizers, the snacks, you have desserts, you have the whole meal. So you have more meals. And sometimes you have those larger plates so you can fit more on top of them. That also causes some issues when we're talking about like the holidays and our eating. Okay. The 2010 dietary guidelines from Americans suggest a 2,000 calorie per day diet for adults and the general population. This calorie recommendation varies among adults based on factors such as age, height, weight, gender, and activity level. Some people may only need 1,600 calories per day, while others may need 22,000 calories per day. Well, I guess 2,200, not 22,000. Regardless of your calorie needs, you can see that eating a slice of chocolate cake with icing would consume a large majority of your calories per day. So this chocolate cake for a 2 by 2 inch slice is 650 calories. And if you think about the 2,000 calorie diet, that is like almost half of your calories for the day. Now that doesn't add like your pies. You have a pecan pie and a pumpkin pie. That doesn't add the whipped cream that you put on top of it. Those calories aren't added. So you'll have to add those into it. And when you're talking about like holiday cookies, you don't eat just two. I know I don't eat just two. You got to eat the whole batch. So those calories would increase as well. That's a lot of calories for desserts. So several options you can help to make healthier choices. You can watch your portion sizes and your food types. So referencing off of my plate, having with fruits and veggies and having those fruits more of like the whole fruits instead of the sugary ones, and kind of rotating some of those leafy greens out so you get more of the vitamins that they already have. You can also plan ahead. So eat healthier before you're going to have the holidays. So the first couple months before Thanksgiving, try to really portion and eat healthier. So when you do have Thanksgiving, it's a little easier and healthier for you. And then don't starve yourself before the event, because then you're going to consume way more than what you actually are hungry for. And then find ways to eat healthy foods. So shoot for having a vegetable each meal or two. And then your plate size. So buying smaller plates, because it's tricking your mind. By buying a smaller plate, you are filling that whole plate. And so you're telling your mind, my plate is full. I'm going to eat this whole plate and I'll be done. So you're kind of tricking your mind saying that you're full because your plate is full as well. And then we're going to make healthier alternatives. So these next couple of slides, we're going to have some alternatives for you and some recipes that you can use. And Megan will be also doing a demonstration with some of these options. Okay. So here's some modifications for holiday cooking. So you want to reduce your sugar, so using less or finding some replacements that have less of the sugar in it. So like non-nutritive sweeteners. That is a healthier option. You also can reduce your fat. So using less of like the box mixes and making them by hand on your own, because those have extra preservatives in it that increase the fat. And then you can also do portion control as well. So like I said about the plate, kind of tricking your mind by having a smaller plate, you're going to have less fat that way as well. And then reduce the sodium, so using less, not putting as much salt in your recipes. I know personally for me, I try to not put a lot of salt in what I make just so I can reduce my sodium intake. If I do, it's a little pinch just for some flavoring. It's really not like what the recipe may call for a teaspoon. I will probably put hardly anything in it just so that I can reduce my sodium. And then you can increase your fiber. So adding those fruits and vegetables and whole grains into any of your recipes and into your diet to make them a little healthier. So if you are, there for Thanksgiving or Christmas and you have to bring something, bring like a veggie tray or a fruit tray. So you have those healthier options there for you, so you're not indulging on some of the unhealthier things that someone may have brought out. So if you take a look at this slide, we're going to talk about like the turkey, and you can see the different parts of the turkey, the skin, and how much fat is in them. So one way we can reduce our fat intake is eating your turkey breast without the skin. Even though the skin is a really good part and is delicious, we may want to take that skin off if you are trying to lower your intake on fat. Does anybody have any questions to this point? Okay, Megan, are you ready?
I am.
Okay. You
Okay.
can share your screen.
Yes. Go ahead and stop sharing, Miss Brooke, and then that way you guys can see my kitchen, my whole kitchen. Can you stop share, Brooke, or do I need to?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. So welcome back to my kitchen. So Brooke gave us some really good ideas on things that we can think about as we're either preparing for our holiday meals or as we're going into the holiday season and going to parties. So what I'm going to show you guys today and talk about are some recipes that you can modify or at least have a healthier version of them, so that you are doing some of these ideas that Brooke shared with us. So we have a ton of handouts and a ton of extra resources for you all that we have on our website that we'll share with you all at the end. Brooke is going to put the 2 recipes that I'm demoing today in the chat box for you to be able to download and look at. So our recipes that I'm sharing today are from our Dining with Diabetes program. And you all might not have diabetes, but these recipes are really just healthier versions. If you have diabetes, these are great modifications, but even if you don't, these are still great ways to have some of those healthier versions of our favorite holiday meals. So in the oven, and I will pull it out when it's done, and we have about 5 minutes left on it, I have macaroni and cheese. which is a delicious holiday, delicious meal. And I'll talk about how we can make that a little bit healthier here in a minute. But I wanted to live demo for you all our green bean recipe. Put in the chat box, let us know what your favorite way to prepare green beans is, as I'm getting things started here. I want to hear your favorite ways that you prepare green beans, or if you even have green anything on your holiday meals. Because we're looking at the list that you guys shared earlier, I see lots of very starchy, sugary treats, and not a ton of, I don't know that anyone put that their favorite is a relish tray or a big salad. So what's your favorite way to prepare green beans? Pan roasted, skillet with bacon. Oh yes. Potatoes, bacon, and bacon grease. Yes, yes. Green bean casserole with French onions. That's my favorite way too. My favorite is the green bean casserole. Cream of mushroom soup. Oh yes. So thinking about how those are prepared, we've got bacon, which is really high in fat, especially when you add bacon and bacon grease. You have the potatoes, that's adding that extra starch. If we have our green bean casserole, that's our cream soups, which is higher in sodium, higher in fat, right? So what I'm going to show you is a healthier version of green beans. That is green beans with cranberries and nuts. So I've got my skillet heated up. I've got my oil in here. And we have whole cranberry, or walnuts. So I'm going to hold those up for you guys to be able to see. So these are chopped walnuts, and walnuts are an awesome, awesome source of antioxidants. They're a source of healthy fats. So bacon grease is more, not really the healthiest kind of fat, but our walnuts are going to be a really nice, healthy fat for us. We have to eat those in portion too, because they are higher in calories. But these are going to add a really nice touch, a really nice nutty flavor to our green beans. They are also going to add fiber, which is really important when we're having our holiday meals, to make sure you're getting enough fiber, because we do not eat enough fiber in our diets anyway. And then you add all those holiday treats in there and our digestive systems just go amok, right? So the other big thing, and this is a really simple recipe too. If you have downloaded those already, you can see how simple these are, and pretty cost effective too. So I am just toasting these almonds basically. And then I've also got these dried cranberries. And the recipe calls for either fresh cranberries. I have dried, which is okay too. But if you notice, the recipe calls for a half cup of fresh. I have dried, so I cut that in half. And I'm going to sprinkle these in here and just get them a little bit warmed up so it helps bring that flavor out of them. And so cranberries are going to add a little bit of sweetness to it. Cranberries are also a healthy fruit as well. And they're really nice in the holidays. If you get cranberries, they're only sold seasonally. So if you can get them, get extra and throw them in your freezer to have on hand. Dried fruit is okay as an alternative, but it is definitely higher in sugar. So you really want to watch how much of those dried fruits we eat. All right. The last part is my green beans. Look at those beautiful green beans. These are not fresh. I actually use canned, but that's okay because canned is just fine too. Woo! Hear that sizzle. Oh, I wish you guys could smell this. There's a little more oil in here. And I have just plain old vegetable oil that I'm using to saute. You could use any kind of oil you like. And so the key with our canned vegetables is that you want to rinse them, because they have a lot of extra sodium in them, which is how they're preserved. So you either want to look for low sodium, no sodium added, and always rinse your vegetables, your canned vegetables, before you use them. And that way you just get off any of that extra sodium that you're going to have in there. And this is really all it is. I am roasting these up. I'm sauteing these up. And this is just going to be a really nice, different. So if you're looking for something different this holiday, And it doesn't even have to be holidays. We're focusing it on holiday eating, but this doesn't have to be at the holidays. These recipes can be eaten at any time. If you're just looking for a way to get more fiber in there, green beans are a beautiful way to get that pretty color in there. The walnuts are going to add a little bit of that crunch. They're going to add a little bit of that good texture in there. So while that's finishing heating up, if you guys can see it, I hope you guys can see how pretty this is. If you use fresh green beans, and if you use whole cranberries, it's going to be a prettier red than these dried cranberries as they cook down a little bit. So you'll have that really pretty pop of red as well in with those cranberry, or in with the walnuts, and in with those green beans. So this is two cans of green beans, or you can get a pound of fresh green beans. Everything's going off at once here. Okay, so that's all it is. I'm gonna show you guys how pretty. What do you guys think? Does that look like something that you would eat? I wish it would be great if I could actually like sample this for you all and give it to you guys to eat. That would be lovely. Yes, I know. I'm really excited to actually try this later. I've got lunch for myself here. So that was a really easy way, like I said, to get those healthier foods. That's a beautiful color to add to your plate versus the whites of the bread and the rolls and the stuffing and the mashed potatoes and all of that kind of stuff. So it helps break up some of that. You add a little bit of extra nutrients in there too. I'm going to open my door and check on my mac and cheese here. It's almost done. I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes. So the other thing that is really important when we're cooking, even if we're just cooking for ourselves, is that we have to make sure we are keeping our food safe. So the very first part of that, and probably the most important piece, is washing your hands. You guys didn't see me wash my hands, but I did. Even if you're just cooking for yourself, if you have to wash your hands before you prepare food, and even during that cooking process, especially if you're working with raw meats or raw foods, you want to make sure you're washing your hands too. And when you're washing your hands, it takes 10 to 15 seconds of lathering. We want to get our hands wet first. So let me start over and go through the steps. So step one is to get warm running water, as warm as you can take it, because that helps to kind of break through those viruses and germs, helps get them broken up. It also helps to kill potentially. Your water's probably not going to get hot enough to actually kill the germs, but what you want to do is start that process of getting them off of your hands. And then once your hands are wet, you want to put soap. And you want to put soap and then lather. And so you put soap on your hands, and then you scrub your hands between your fingers, backs of your hands, wrists too, especially if you're cooking, up your wrists a little bit so that anything that could potentially come in contact with food gets clean. And with our soap, a lot of people ask what kind of soap they need to use. Regular soap is fine, because what soap does is it breaks through the membranes of those viruses and the bacteria, and the whole point is just to get them off of your hands. Some people prefer antibacterial soaps in their kitchens, and that's fine, but it's not necessary. If you do use that, that's okay, but you do not have to use antibacterial soap in your kitchen because you're just wanting to get rid of those germs. And along with our hands being clean, we want to make sure that we are keeping our surfaces clean. So anything, our utensils, our skillets, our spatulas, baking dishes, countertops, anything that's going to come in contact with food should be cleaned, preferably sanitized if possible, but at least cleaned before you use them. A lot of times foodborne illness, which is what happens with when we get food poisoning, is what we usually call it. But how that gets transferred to food most of the time is actually through us. It's not necessarily the food itself. So it's either our hands aren't clean or our utensils aren't clean enough. So make sure that you have clean surfaces and clean utensils before you start cooking. So once we actually get that cooking process going, I have heated up my green beans. So that starts my clock ticking for my green beans. If there happen to be any bacteria that I passed on to them, or if they happen to have any in them, which is very unlikely, but I could potentially have passed it on, then that starts that clock. I have 4 hours at maximum to get that food back into refrigeration. So if you think about, especially holiday meals, if we have food sitting out then that food is just sitting without temperature control, so either with heat or with being cooled. And so that food is just going to potentially grow bacteria, which sounds really gross, and it should, because it should kind of scare you into taking more care of this, because we can't taste bacteria, we can't smell bacteria. So that bacteria might be growing in our food and we have no idea. So we want to make sure when we're cooking food, we're cooking it to the right temperatures, and looking at it is not enough, especially with meat. We can't look at meat and know if it's done. We have to use a food thermometer to be able to know that that meat is done. Vegetables are generally not as unsafe, so those just need to be heated enough to where you're getting them hot, and that should be okay. But you still have to make sure you're cooling them properly that way too. So when we're thinking about those pieces as well. All right, let me check them on mac and cheese now. All right, oh, it looks beautiful. All right, so this, if you've had a chance to check out that recipe, is a healthier modification. Look at that, of mac and cheese. I'm gonna let this set here for a little bit and let it get really nice and thick. So this is a healthier version of our regular mac and cheese. You'll notice if you look at the recipe, it still has cheese in it. It still has noodles in it. It still has that pasta, right? So I didn't make a different kind of mac and cheese. I made classic mac and cheese. But what the difference, some of the differences is, classic mac and cheese use a lot of cheese, use a lot of cream. This uses evaporated milk, which is a little healthier version, a little healthier substitute versus those heavy creams. So you're still going to get that rich, creamy flavor, but we've cut the cheese down a little bit, and we've cut down that amount of heavy cream. But you're still going to be able to get that mac and cheese flavor whenever you're eating it. The other thing, and I didn't do this with this recipe, but if you wanted to add an extra healthy step as well, you can use whole grain noodles. And so some people don't really like the flavor texture of whole grain noodles, but if you did half and half, so if you did half whole grain noodles and half regular noodles, you would be able to add that extra piece of fiber in there and make that even a little bit healthier as well. And of course, if you want to do all whole grain noodles, absolutely do that. But especially if you're transitioning yourself into eating more whole grains, then that's a good way to transition that into eating a little healthier. So here are all the two recipes again. And we have a whole host of recipes that we're going to share with you guys that you can check out on our website after this to look at how we can make healthier versions and still enjoy those treats that we love. So with that, I'm going to open it to questions that you guys have, comments that you have, ideas that you found that are different recipe modifications that you found that work really well for you. Any ideas? Do you guys think that these are recipes that you could try at home? Totally. Okay, good. Yes, I don't know if you guys can actually hear the cheese bubbling here. Pureed cauliflower added. Yes, absolutely. So those are another great ways to add things in there. So we can take our favorite recipes and add extra vegetables in there. Spinach in your meatballs. Absolutely. Yes. So find those favorite holiday meals and find ways to add. So you could add broccoli to this mac and cheese. You could add cauliflower to that. You could, yeah, so you could do all, there's a whole range of things. Add those vegetables in there. If you're making soups, then add extra vegetables in those soups. And most of the time they get cooked down so you don't really taste the vegetables, although I love the taste of vegetables. But you can do all kinds of things to add vegetables to those favorite foods too, so that you are getting those vegetables added and still enjoying those yummy, savory things. Oh, good question, Danielle.
Okay,
yes. Yes, so there's substitute for nuts. You could potentially put sunflower seeds as an option if you can't have nuts. You can always just leave the nuts out. But it depends on if it's like a tree nut or a pine nut, or you could always put peanuts if it's not a peanut allergy, if it's like a tree nut allergy, to get that kind of crunch in there too. Yeah. Or mushrooms. Thank you, Megan. Yes, mushrooms for nuts. And you can add, I personally absolutely love mushrooms. So with this recipe, the green bean recipe, I probably would love to add some mushrooms in there as well. So that would be a nice substitute too. Yep, pumpkin seeds are another great one. Yep, all kinds of seeds that you can add just to get that flavor, just to get that crunch in there too. Great suggestions. I love when our group is sharing their ideas too, because we all learn best when we learn from each other. So I love that you guys are sharing that. Thank you. Other questions or ideas or things that you found that work really well for you, or questions about recipes that you wish you could make a little bit healthier for you and your families? You all are probably going through your pantries looking for all these ingredients to make these right now. I wish I could share the smells, because this smells so good. Okay, what other questions? And if, as you guys keep coming in, Brooke, if you want to pull up those last few slides, or maybe I need to do that. Let me pull that back up. And we'll do kind of our conclusion, but please keep putting those questions in that chat box for us and your ideas in there too. Oh, Kathy, that's a great question. I'm sure there is, but I will have to get back to you on that healthy fudge recipe. That's one of those, and baking recipes are a little bit trickier to modify to make healthy because of the chemistry involved in a lot of those recipes, a lot of those ingredients. Is a lot of times you need those specific kinds of ingredients to make it go together and to make it work. So a lot of times we saw when things were becoming much more gluten-free, especially when that trend was starting, is that we saw that the gluten-free foods were not very tasty, because when you just take the gluten out, gluten is a very important ingredient in baking to help the food rise and have a nice texture. When you take it out, it completely changes the texture. Now, they've improved over time, absolutely, on getting those, but a lot of those things, and especially sugars, you can't just not put any sugar in something and have it taste the same. And it also is going to affect how it holds together. So a lot of those recipes that we see that are sugar-free recipes or low sugar recipes don't have the same consistency and texture. So be aware of those. There are some modifications you can make. A lot of times with those sweet treats, I just recommend watching your portions on those. And I know that's not the answer, but I can look up if we have some healthier fudges, but they just might not taste the same. They might not have the same flavor or texture as like a really good fudge would have. So, as with all of our webinars, we appreciate the feedback that we get from you during our session, but we also appreciate feedback that we get afterward. It helps us to tell our story. Since we are a nationwide network and even a statewide network, we have different funding streams. So we have to be able to report the work that we're doing as well. So your responses and your feedback helps us to be able to do that, to show that we are having an impact in our community. So we have a short survey. If you can take a few minutes to fill that out when we're done, that will also be included in our follow-up email that we'll send to you all tomorrow. that has the link and access to all the handouts and extra resources that we have. So you can do that either through text or online. It's completely anonymous, completely voluntary, but we do appreciate having that feedback from you. And of course, you're always welcome to email us after today or at any time if you come up with ideas or have other questions or thoughts on that too. So next week, we still have 2 more weeks of our November webinar series, and we'd love for you to come back, invite a friend. So our next 2 live ones are, again, on Mondays. Next week's is time management is stress management. And then our last one before Thanksgiving is going to be beating the holiday blues. So we hope that you can join us live, but as with all of our webinars, we have them recorded. So you can go back and watch any of the recordings at any time. If you haven't gotten those links sent to you, please send us an email and we'll be happy to get access to you for those. And if you have other groups that you know would like to watch these, they can absolutely do that at any time. That's why we have them recorded. So please let us know if we have any questions. This is how you register. And it'll send you the link to get registered for those. Yes, Jeremy, we can get you a certificate of completion. We will have that information included in our follow-up email that we'll send to you tomorrow. So there'll be a link on there for you to go on to be able to get that certificate. Absolutely. So any final questions or thoughts that you guys have before we sign off and I go enjoy my, my lunch here? Yeah, we thought being in the kitchen would kind of break it up a little bit to keep it from being just a PowerPoint. So I appreciate that feedback. And my kitchen is kind of small, but it works perfectly to have this little section here for me to be able to show you guys what I've done. Just wish that we could do a lot, like a food sample so you guys could taste this yummy stuff. And thanks, everyone. We'll hold on for a couple minutes if anyone has specific questions. But thank you so much. Have an awesome rest of your day and hope to see you next week.